Good morning. Thank you for joining us today on Wellesley's annual Veterans Day ceremony. My name is Joe Oliveri, the Wellesley Veterans Graves and Ceremonial Officer, and would like to start things off with the Girl Scouts from Wellesley and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Honor guard, breathe it up.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to invite Elle LaFave, 10th grader from Wellesley High School, lacrosse and soccer player, to sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. I'd like to invite the Rabbi for the invocation.
Almighty God, creator of all humankind, we pray that you will guide us today and in all our days. Send your peace to our nation and to all nations. O God of mercy, we ask your blessing and comfort for all those who are suffering. Cheer them and bring back to them the blessings of health and happiness. And we ask these things in your holy name. Amen. We're standing here today in the presence of many veterans. And behind me and in front of me are the names of many more who are memorialized, and even some who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our freedom. And I can think of no better way to honor that sacrifice than to focus on the opportunity that we have today to increase in acts of goodness and kindness, each of us in our own way, where we work, where we live, to turn the darkness into light. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Roy Switzler, John Saunders for the placing of the flag.
The prisoner of war missing in action flag is present within every veterans organization during their meetings and at today's ceremony. It is draped upon an empty chair in memory of those who left on a mission and did not return. more than 78,000 Americans are still missing unaccounted for. These courageous men and women, Americans who dedicated their lives to preserving and protecting our freedom, will never be forgotten. Those who have served and those currently serving in the uniformed services of the United States are ever mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured and may still be enduring the agonies of pain and internment. The prisoner of war missing in action flag reminds us to continue to pledge full accountability for all those who have not returned. The American flag reminds us that many may never return and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom.
Honor guard, freeze it, up. Honor guard, order, up.
At this time, I'd like to invite Alex Peisch for the reading of the proclamation.
Good morning, and thank you very much for including me in the ceremony this morning. I'd just like to acknowledge what I think is a wonderful turnout this morning. We're fortunate to have such good weather and have so many people come here this morning to honor our veterans. And it's my honor to read the Governor's proclamation. Whereas, since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty. And whereas on November 11, 1918, the Armistice was signed by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans. And whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts, and whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans have made to our country, and whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage, and whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who serve their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. And whereas in November 2021, the world will commemorate the 103rd anniversary of the Armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m., November 11, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now therefore I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2021 to be Veterans Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this 11th day of November in the year 2021, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 245th. By His Excellency Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth, Karen Ippolito, Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, and William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth.
At this time, the Wellesley High School cheerleaders would like to come up, and you have a poem? With a poem, What is a Veteran? Come on up.
On Veterans Day, we honor all who answered to a service call.
Soldiers young and soldiers old fought for freedom, brave and bold.
Some have lived while others died, and all of them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue.
They fought for us and all our rights. They fought through many days and nights.
And that we may not know each name, we thank all veterans just the same.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Roy Switzler up for introductions to the rest of the speakers today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. My name is Roy Switzer. I've been around town for a few years. I'd like to call forward Ken Johnson, who's going to read Who is a Veteran? Ken?
Good morning. Who is a veteran? You cannot tell who is a veteran just by looking. He or she is one of many patriotic Americans who served a tour of duty in the Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, or Air Force. It could have been for 1, 2, or more years, and if they chose, their career. Some veterans wear visible signs of their service, a missing limb, a jagged scar, a certain look in his or her eyes. Others may carry the evidence inside them, a pin holding a bone together, a piece of shrapnel buried in a leg, or perhaps another sort of inner steel, the soul's ally, forged in the refinery of adversity. It may also be an event tattooed in the back of the mind, never to be discussed with another mortal. Except on special occasions, however, the men and women who have kept America safe wear no badges or emblems. You cannot tell who is a veteran just by looking. Just who is a veteran? He is a Marine who sludged through the mud of Guadalcanal, the sailor who manned the anti-aircraft artillery, fighting off kamikaze attacks, or a half-frozen survivor of a torpedo destroyer in the North Atlantic prior to Pearl Harbor. He is a soldier who battled the elements in the Bulge during Germany's last desperate offensive. He flew combat missions in bombers, fighters, or many other types of aircraft. He is the local loudmouth, dumber than can be imagined, whose overgrown frat boy behavior is outweighed 100 times in the cosmic scales by 4 hours of exquisite bravery in combat near the 38th parallel. He is the guy next door who served in the muddy rice paddies and froze in the snowy mountains of Korea. He came home as 103,000 wounded in the forgotten victory. She or he is the nurse who fought against futility and went to sleep sobbing every night for 2 solid years in Da Nang. Occasionally, those nightmares resurface even today, many years since their tour of duty ended. He could be the cop on the beat who spent months in the sands of Kuwait and Iraq, sweating gallons a day, making sure that the armored personnel carriers did not run out of fuel. He or she is the father or mother called to active duty to serve in the war on terrorism, far beyond from their loved ones. He is a Quantico drill instructor who never saw combat, but saved countless lives by turning slouchy, no-account redneck and gang members into Marines. He taught them to watch each other's backs. He is a parade-riding legionnaire who needs help to pin on his ribbons and medals because of his prosthetic hands. He is a career quartermaster who watches the ribbons and medals pass him by. He is the POW who went away as one person and returned a different person, or in some cases, did not return at all. He is the 3 anonymous heroes now sheltered in the tomb of the unknowns, whose presence at the Arlington National Cemetery must forever preserve the memory of all the anonymous heroes whose valor dies unrecognized with them on the battlefield or in the ocean's sunless deep. They shall not and must not have died in vain. He is the old man bagging groceries at the supermarket, palsied now and aggravatingly slow, who helped liberate a Nazi death camp and who wishes all day that his wife was still alive to hold him when the nightmares come along. He was an ordinary boy or girl, yet an extraordinary human being who offered some of life's most vital and maybe all in the service of our country and sacrificed their ambitions so that you and I would not have to sacrifice ours. He is a soldier and a savior and a sword against the darkness. And he is nothing more than the finest, the greatest testimony on behalf of the finest, the greatest nation ever known. It is you and I, the lucky ones, the returnees. Hopefully we will be capable and energetic enough to convince those who are not called, convince them, their children, and our own children as well, that the United States of America is worth fighting for if a fight is forced upon us. Thank God for veterans. Author, Father Dennis Edward O'Brien, Chaplain, 1st Marine Division.
Thank you, Ken. I'd like to introduce now for a poem that's read each year at this event, Chris Cavallarano, In Flanders Fields.
Good morning. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row. They mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders field. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. You shall not sleep, though poppies grow, in Flanders fields. By Lieutenant Colonel John Craig, Canadian Army, World War II combatant.
That ending remark was Chris's service dog. I'd like now to introduce Patty Sears, who's the daughter of sister of veterans who had 4 in her family. Patty Sears, you here?
Good morning. As mentioned previously, this day used to be called Armistice Day. I don't know if you know what that means. I didn't. I had to go look it up. And it means an agreement by opposing sides in a war to stop the fighting. Eisenhower signed a bill later on to change today's moniker to Veterans Day to honor not only those who fought in World War I, but all servicemen and women living and dead. I have been to Arlington National Cemetery 3 times in my life. This past summer, was to finally lay my father to rest. My father retired as Lieutenant Colonel after 38 years of service for his country. His wish was to be laid to rest among his brothers and sisters in arms. And on July 21st, 2021, we were able to do that. We arrived at Arlington at the appointed time, and the Master of Ceremonies brings the family into family room to discuss, lay out the ceremony so that we knew what to expect and how things were going to proceed. At this time, he informed us that we had a choice whether we could walk on foot behind the caisson, the horse-drawn carriage carrying the remains. And he advised that we had a hill that we had to climb. And regardless, I felt that it was a privilege to be able to do that, knowing that we wanted my mother to ride in a car. Well, when we got to the transfer station, which is the point where they transfer the cremains into the caisson, the wind started to blow. A crack of lightning, the rain came, it came and it monsooned all over us. The Master of Ceremonies directed us back to our cars, where we proceeded to the gravesite, not walking behind the caisson. I felt it was my dad's way of saying, don't make your mother walk up that hill. The procession stopped at the gravesite. We sat in our cars for about 3 minutes. The rain stopped, the skies cleared. Through all of that, rain, thunder, lightning, wind, the honor guard did not break stride. They did not break form. Even when one of the horses came out of his bridle. Those brave young men knew what they were respecting, they knew what they were honoring. There are thousands of jobs in the military. Being part of the honor guard is a position that you must earn. It made me think about why this post is so coveted. When you're a member of the military, your life and your life views shift. You understand what it means to serve and protect and be willing to sacrifice your own comforts in life in belief of a greater good. I feel very privileged that as a private citizen, I was able to get a glimpse into this one job. As we sat there at the gravesite for the ceremony, these men were standing in front of me, their uniforms absolutely dripping. I watched the drops fall and realized the comforts that they sacrificed so that they could honor and respect my father's final wish. I still find it difficult to find the words to describe the aura surrounding these men. My father was retired. He hadn't served in years, yet that didn't matter. What mattered was that at one point he had. He was a lifelong member of a brother and sisterhood who honor each other because they understand and know each other even if they have never met. So if I had one wish for today, it would be to think about the significance of the singular task of the honor guard who paid respects to my father and so many others, and take a small piece of that sincerity with you today to thank a veteran for their service. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Interesting story that you offer. This time I'd like to call forward for a speech a history teacher, John Derlin. John?
Thank you very much, Roy. Tip that up a little bit. That's a very hard act to follow. Let me just start by saying that today is the centennial of the dedication of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier down in Arlington in the same national cemetery that Patty was just referring to. And that was commemorated almost exactly 100 years ago today to honor those who went basically missing in action in the First World War, or as it was then called, the Great War. When World War II broke out, we had to start numbering our Great Wars, and the name was then later changed to World War I. Got a couple of just quick comments I want to make here. Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1938 basically declared Armistice Day, as it was then called, a national holiday. Before that, it was observed by many states, but was not officially a national holiday. And then in 1954, after we had gone through the Second World War and also the Korean War, Armistice Day was renamed Veterans Day, which is the name that we essentially use for it today. In 1971, there was an interesting controversy when the Congress decided that rather than having certain holidays, 4 in particular, celebrated on their actual day, instead we would make them floating holidays because they presumed that most people would rather have a 3-day weekend and have Monday off rather than some day in the middle of the week, like, for example, Thursday. They did not basically count on the fact that the veterans organizations in this country, especially those representing the World War I veterans, were not too pleased by that. And after about 8 years of celebrating Veterans Day as a floating holiday, it was moved back to November 11th, which is why we're here today. And of course, we gathered here today at 11 in the morning, as Alice Pice reminded us, to celebrate essentially the fact that the war ended on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, which is why Veterans Day is celebrated on November 11th. I would just like to close, I think, with one quick thought here. Oh, and by the way, the other 3 holidays that were shifted to a Monday holiday still are Columbus Day and Washington's birthday and Memorial Day have all remained floating holidays because people rather enjoy that, as I think most of you would attest. But Veterans Day is special and is celebrated on its exact day, the way July 4th is as well. My last quote for you is a quote from President Ronald Reagan, who said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction." And I would leave you with that thought on Veterans Day. Thank you.
Thank you, John. This time I'd like to call forward with some words regarding the Red Cross, Deb Andwood. Deb Andwood? She's behind me.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm honored to have this opportunity to speak with you today. I would like to thank all the veterans in attendance today, as well as all veterans and their families with connections to Wellesley for their selfless sacrifice of service. I would also like to recognize Wellesley veterans who we remember and honor today who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Veterans like Joseph Tartari, who served in the Navy during World War II. Ensign Tartari was a pilot instructor who lost his life in January 1943. Veterans like Edward Henry Gleason Jr., who was killed in action in September 1944 while serving in Europe as a U.S. Army Corps pilot. Both were graduates of Wellesley High School and answered the call to service. For those who risk their lives to protect our freedom, it is a selfless act of valor that is done without asking anything in return. I am proud to have served in the United States Army myself for 30 years. Every veteran has a story to share, and I would like to take a few minutes to share my story with you. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Women's Army Corps on April 6, 1975. What I thought would be a 2-year stint resulted in a 30-year career in military service. The lessons and skills I learned related to leadership, teamwork, reliability, and accountability have been invaluable throughout my life. Just a few of my assignments included executive officer for an engineer training company, 10 years with a transportation terminal company focused on shiploading operations, and supported the movement of equipment during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And I was the first female commander of a railway battalion in Connecticut. I retired from the military several years ago. I continued to support our veterans as a volunteer with the Red Cross Service to Armed Forces. The Red Cross Service to Armed Forces provides a variety of services to meet the needs of active duty soldiers and veterans and their families. These services include emergency communications, financial assistance, information referrals, and deployment services. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who has any kind of need, please have them contact the Red Cross Service to Armed Forces, and we can help them with whatever that need may be. In closing, I would like to end where I began. I am very proud of my military service and to be called a veteran. Thank you again to all our veterans for your unselfish service to our country. Please share your stories with your family and friends to ensure our contributions are not lost with the passage of time. And finally, thank you all for your ongoing support to our veterans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Excuse me, Deb. I'd like to this time call forward the daughter of Al Barbieri, who served in service in the Second World War, was in our parade for many years as a Purple Hat veteran. And she has something to tell you about what Al has. He brought with him every year to the parade, how he got it, and why he got it. Barbara McGrath, would you come forward?
Oh, I have show and tell. I'm so short. Everyone, I know. Thank you. Okay, hi everyone. I want to thank Mr. Oliveri for asking me to tell my father's story. It's a wonderful opportunity and it helps me and my family keep him alive. My father was a lifelong resident of Wellesley. He fought in World War II. My brothers Al and John and I grew up in Wellesley's Veterans neighborhood, the Wellesley Woodlands. We and all the children in the neighborhood spent our time playing war. That's what we did. We started out with toy guns and then we graduated to BB guns. And I don't mean to brag, but there's not a tin can that won't run away from me. I also want to thank all veterans. My father adamantly told us that he was not a hero, he was doing his job. He said the heroes were buried there. I know a lot of veterans feel that way, but to me, any man or woman who signs up to protect my family, my freedom to disagree, whether it be in war or peace, is a hero. So thank you. No one can live through war without being changed in some way. Every veteran has a story to tell, and they are important stories. Please keep sharing them. Tell your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. Your stories fill the human emotion of history that history books don't capture. My father never talked about his experiences with us until we were much older. We only heard the funny stories. He enlisted in the Army after graduating from Wellesley High School. He was 18. And in his later years, he was interviewed by the Wellesley Townsman. And recently, I found the article. So I'm going to read my father's words about what happened with the helmet. And don't panic. The writing's really big and it's really short. This is from the Wellesley Townsman on May 2001. I was on the front line in the Hürtgen forest on the Belgian-Germany border. We were taking a hill and I was carrying an automatic rifle, the BAR, the Browning automatic rifle. You have a group of 3, an ammunition carrier, an assistant BAR man, and the BAR man. Well, within 3 days, they killed the BAR man. They killed the ammunition carrier, and a day and a half later, it was only me. It was about noon, the day before Thanksgiving, November 22nd, 1944. The firing never stopped. The poor medic was behind the trees, and he happened to step out a little too far, and they put a bullet right through his eye. So we were out without a medic. It was a tough place. They had me pinned down and the dirt was flying all around me. I was bobbing and weaving. I couldn't even shoot. I was just trying to dodge bullets. I was lying on my rifle and the guy was coming right at me. I was looking down the barrel of his rifle. I pulled the trigger to make a sweep so I couldn't miss, but my rifle went click. When I looked down, his bullet hit the top of my helmet, tore right across it, missed my back, left shrapnel in my neck, and what he calls his fanny must have been sticking up, and I got a 6-inch gouge in my fanny. And then his words stopped. These are our words from what he told us. His boots were full of blood. He stumbled around the forest, lost, looking for Americans to get him back to camp. When he finally flagged down Americans, he was sent to a hospital in France. It is against Army regulations to keep a United States helmet. But when the nurse saw the helmet, she said, "I don't care. I'm shipping this home to your parents." And it actually made it home to Wellesley. The push was on. Every man who could walk was sent to the front to the Battle of the Bulge. He was sent as a scout, while in a freezing foxhole with a buddy, their radio communication was lost overnight. When the radio signals worked the next day, he called in to send a stretcher. Both men couldn't walk and had suffered from frostbitten feet, and that earned him his second Purple Heart. My father had a great sense of humor, so when people asked him where he got shot, he said, "Germany." Okay, just a few notes. He was a PFC sharpshooter who earned 2 Purple Hearts and the Bronze Star. Refused promotions offered. Refused to collect veterans benefits because he felt others needed it more. His words to me one day were, there wasn't one day that went by that I wasn't homesick or scared. My father did have a great sense of humor, and he was apparently very persistent. If you ask my mother, who is over here, she's 94, how they met, she will say, he told me she was the only girl on Oak Street that he hadn't kissed. And actually, she will say, he stalked me. I came out of the movies, he was there. I came out of work, he was there. And finally, they got married. When I think of my father, I like to think he was a man who lived his life feeling lucky to be alive every day. And I want to thank you all again, to every veteran here. I love you all. My mom is over there. She has a copy. She made bookmarks of Flanders Field for all of you. She is sitting next to her 92-year-old best friend and her husband, who is a World War II veteran of the Navy, Joe Nickerson and Celeste Nickerson. Thank you very much. That was fun.
Thank you, Barbara. Barbara is the rear end of speakers among the group that we just held before our guest speaker comes forth. At this time, though, I'd like to make a few introductions and thank yous. I'd like to thank the police department, the fire department, Board of Selectmen members who are here. I think Tom Alfelder and Lise Olney and Beth Sullivan Woods, I believe. The executive director, Megan Jopp, is here, and whoever else is a town employee or a town elected official, we thank you for coming. I'd like to thank the Wellesley media for being here to take this in, which you should be able to see on Wellesley Channel, what is it, 40 or 39 or 13, I'm not sure what both numbers are. And I would just like to thank all the rest of you for coming and celebrating Veterans Day. Veterans Day is not really a celebration. It's a remembrance of those who have given their lives or fought for us to protect the freedoms of this country that have happened back until and before the Revolutionary War. Most particularly, as you see before us, Vietnam is mentioned, Second World War is mentioned among the displays around the town, as well as the First World War. At this time, I'd like to call forward, for the purpose of an introduction, a lifelong Wellesley resident and a former member of the United States Marine Corps, Larry Fitzmaurice.
Thank you, Roy. Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to speak to you very briefly, before introducing our guest speaker behind me, about what goes on with the Veterans Services Department in the town of Wellesley. That department is represented not by me, but I will mention later by whom, but they are unavailable today because they have to divide their services among several towns, which I'll briefly allude to. The Veteran Services officer in the department provide entitled benefits to veterans of a variety of kinds, which I won't allude to all. You can look on their website and see them all. They maintain veterans records. They're the contact for National Veterans Services and widows insurance benefits. The current serving Veteran Services officer is Sandra Calpe, who's an Army Reserve First Sergeant, recently deployed on active duty. Her deputy is Nancy Blanchard, who we see around town more often these days, who is a Sergeant First Class, retired after 24 years in the Army. These two folks cover the towns of Wellesley, obviously, but also Wayland, Weston, Needham, and Westwood. So they're covering a lot of territory. You can find them available at Town Hall when you need them. Please get on their website and you can get particulars. Mr. Joe Oliveri, who led off the introductions this morning, and is our MC today, along with Roy Switzler, is the Deputy Veteran Services Officer for Veterans Graves and Ceremonial Affairs. He's also a former Marine. Not too shy on Marines around Boston these days. Many Wellesley residents have served. Those who served during wartime are listed at Town Hall and on these various plaques beside me and around me that have been mentioned earlier. Some are memorialized in additional ways. Kelly Field, for example, represents 2 Kelly veterans from Wellesley on the Kelly Field at Bates School. Mr. Willard Hunnewell, a naval officer in World War II, just celebrated his 100th birthday, and whose earlier family donated Town Hall behind me in 1881 and have a school and a street named in the family's honor. David Ouellette was the United States Navy Medal of Honor recipient and gave up his life to protect those around him. Francis Cummings, United States Navy, lost his life on the submarine Thresher during peacetime. The problem with lists like this, like any litany, is that many people may be inadvertently omitted. If so here, it's my field responsibility. But I am nevertheless eternally grateful. I thank you all for being here today. Please consider volunteering for various town needs as they may come up. The town of Wellesley is even stronger because of its, not necessarily unique to Wellesley, but unique to some towns, volunteer contingent. This town is heavily reliant upon volunteers of all kinds, and please consider that. I know you're already quite busy. Thank you all very much. As Fitzmaurice does his grateful segue to our guest speaker, Colonel Bill Synod. Behind me is a partner with Hinckley Allen Law Firm in Boston. He was the former Corporation Counsel, which is the chief lawyer for the city of Boston. He was the former Assistant U.S. Attorney, former Assistant DA in Norfolk County, 32 years in the Marine Corps, including active duty in Bosnia and Iraq. Bill is a trustee of his alma mater, Boston Latin School, and he's also a trustee at Massachusetts Maritime Academy. Please give a rousing Boston welcome to a Boston-born and bred Marine, Colonel Bill Synod.
Thank you, Larry. It's always a little risky when an enlisted man introduces an officer. Usually I get reduced a couple of ranks, but I'm glad I didn't suggest that. Larry probably would have reduced me by 3. It's such a privilege to be here in celebration of Wellesley's veterans. I want to thank my dear friend and fellow Marine Larry for inviting me to participate and asking me to appear in my dress uniform. Frankly, I'm the only one of Larry's friends that still fits into his uniform. So it's by default I ended up here in my blues. I think Larry wanted to see if I still fit in them. Larry instructed me to keep my remarks short, no doubt because he knows that I am a practicing attorney and he's afraid he's going to get billed for my speaking here. What I have to say will not take long, but it's from my heart. You heard a series of excellent presentations and readings and poems, all talking about what a veteran is, what Veterans Day is, and how we need to appreciate them. I'd like to build on those subjects and talk about why Veterans Day is important not only to veterans, but to their communities. In 2004, after being recalled to active duty by the Marine Corps, I deployed to Iraq. One day I walked into the Combat Operations Center in Fallujah for a meeting. After the meeting, I was walking out of the Operations Center, or the COC as we called it, and just before the exit, I saw a whiteboard In large, bold letters, a Marine had written the following in marker on that whiteboard. The Marine Corps is at war. America is at the mall. I stopped dead in my tracks, disturbed by what I had read, not because anyone had done anything wrong, but because of the gravity of the words appearing on that board and how they stunned me. Was it true, I wondered? Was it accurate? Did our country not care that young men and women were putting their lives on the line every day? And then I thought something else. If those words reflected the sentiment and perceptions of our warriors, it didn't matter if they were true, it didn't matter if they were accurate. The real truth lay in the perception of our troops that their service and sacrifice were not recognized or appreciated. We live in an increasingly polarized America in a dangerous and violent world. The one constant in our history has been this. For 2.5 centuries, America has called upon its youth to defend its people, its territory, and its values. And dedicated Americans have always answered the call, often at great cost. Will they do so in the future? That's up to us. Will we provide the medical and mental health treatment needed by our veterans? The educational and occupational training and support required for them to succeed? Hire a vet must be more than an empty slogan. And this is important. Will we support their family members whose sacrifices often go unnoticed? It wasn't until after I retired and I became a Marine dad that I truly appreciated the unrelenting fear and anxiety that military families experience during war zone deployments of their loved ones. Where you look out the window and you see an unfamiliar car pull into your driveway. And for a fleeting moment, your knees buckle and you wonder whether the worst news you've ever heard is about to greet you at the door. That's something that military families go through every day. We must ensure that young men and women know with certainty that their community and country appreciate and recognize their service and sacrifice. And by the way, my Marine came home safely after 3 Afghanistan tours, continues on active service, and she is a better Marine than I ever was. We have to ensure that they know how we feel. And that's why we gather here today in the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. A society is judged by the things it values and the people it honors. In valuing sacrifice and service and in honoring our veterans, the town of Wellesley has passed the test. Every resident of Wellesley should be proud of the men and women of this town who have served our country and of the families whose support made it all possible. And each of us should be proud of this town's standing up to honor and remember its veterans. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. Happy Veterans Day, and God bless you.
Just a brief footnote. The colonel mentioned his daughter, who was in the Marine Corps, being a better Marine than he was. I find that hard to believe, but this young lady invited me to her commissioning ceremony at Harvard College a few years back. This young woman was Miss Boston, black belt karate, terrorism major at Harvard College, second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, did her active duty tours in the sandbox over there, and when they cut her first orders, they said, well, Lieutenant, we've cut your orders for a med cruise. Her retort was, with all due respect, sir, I didn't join the Marine Corps to ride on Navy boats. I'm a terrorism expert. My field is counterterrorism. I understand there's a war going on. Would you please recut my orders? She came home and she's now a major field grade officer in the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps has sent her, and she is now actively involved in a PhD program out on the West Coast. So her career is, I think, well established in the Marine Corps. So I wanted to make sure, while Dad doesn't like to brag, I don't mind doing it.
Thank you, Larry. When I introduced people a while ago, I didn't introduce the Wellesley High School Band. As you note, they're not here, but you will hear from at least two members of the band in the while, Max and Teddy. At this time, I'd like to call to attention, salute to the dead. Sergeant at Arms.
Honor guard. Reason. Up. Order. Up.
Taps.
Honor guard. Reason. Up.
Order.
Order. Up.
At this time, I'd like to call forward for the benediction, Rabbi Shmuel Boland.
Thank you. It's a great honor to offer the closing benediction at the Veterans Day observance. And fittingly, this is a blessing first offered by Aaron, the brother of Moses, who was known as an Ohev Shalom, a lover of peace. So I will recite it first in Hebrew and then in English. Yivarecha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Yoer Hashem pone v'lecha v'choneka, Yisel Hashem pone v'lecha v'yosem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord's countenance be lifted up upon you and give you peace. Amen. Thank you.
Before I bring back Ellen LaFave, I'd just like to say one thing. If you see a veteran, or someone who has served, think about saying thank you for your service. Many do today automatically. Many do today because they think somebody else wants to hear it. But I'll tell you, it means something to every veteran. I'd like to call forward for singing America the Beautiful, Ellen LaFave.
How do you take this thing out? There we go.
So I'm also singing with my friend Brendan. So yeah.
For more than self, their country loved, and America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, for more than self, their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Our very own Catherine Lee Bates, for those of you who don't know, wrote that song, and the Bates School is named after her as well. Some of the younger people may not know that, but we're proud of that fact. Catherine Lee Bates was a professor at Wellesley College. We're going to call an end to this, and again, I want to thank you and thank the weather. Couldn't have been better if we had planned it this way. Also like to thank Joe Oliveri, the Graves officer of the town, who set this up. As far as I know, Joe, that's it. Thank you. Go about your business, but don't forget, thank you for your service. It's appreciated.